What's up? My name's Levi from the Owl Revelations. Some of you may know me as Paper Plane on Discord. And today we're going to go in and take care of those RVTs. I kind of felt bad for leaving you on the last one. It just would have made the video way too long. And also for the news for today, next week, probably around Wednesday to Friday, we are going to put out all the rules that you'll need to follow in order to win the copy of Oceanology. Yes, I did get 2 keys for Oceanology, and I will be giving them away to 2 lucky winners. So definitely stay tuned for that, because that is going to be awesome. So without further ado, let's go ahead and open this up, and we're going to actually take care of a few things first really quick, just to kind of streamline things so that things open a little bit better, and also get a little bit of stuff organized, because right now it's all over the place, and we're going to get a lot of items in here that we're going to want to take care of at some point. So the first one we're going to deal with is that, as you can see, I just opened up the project and it went right to the default map, and we don't really want to see the default map anymore because that's boring. So we're going to go ahead and go up to the settings. We're going to go to our project settings, and we're going to go into the maps and modes, and we're going to find our map, which is called, of course, our map. And we're going to load that one here and let it load real quick. And then we're going to open it up so that we can just drop that in here as well. So this first one is going to be the editor startup map. So whenever you first start the editor, this will be the map that loads in. This will be your game default map. So when you actually do your packaging to make the game so people can play it, this will be the default map. This one will actually change. Generally, you're going to want to do a menu map or a main menu or something like that that you'll add here later. And then that menu map will run the like your logos and stuff first, then go into the menu, and then you can switch into this one. But for right now, since this is the only map we have, we're going to go ahead and make our map also. I don't know why this one's not changing. We're going to also make our map the game default as well. So we can exit out of there, go ahead and hit all save, even though it doesn't show anything there. And we're going to jump out, and we're going to jump right back in. And here we are back. So now when we open it up, you'll notice it's going to go right into our map, or the one that we're working on. All right, so here's our map all set up just exactly the way we left it. I actually have this up here again. I'm not sure why the physical actors materials is giving me issues. Usually that's not there. But for right now, we can actually go down to our inner console. If you just push up the up command, or the up key on the keyboard, you'll see all of the commands that you've previously used, and then you can select through them. And I'm just going to use the one that we've already done here. And I still have the foam off. So what we're going to do first is we're actually going to take care of that. And I also want to show you where it was, just in case you deal with this issue as well. So if you go into the instance itself, and I don't recommend playing with the the main materials or the instances. If you do want to make major changes, I would copy it. So you can actually open it here, and you can do copies of material instances and stuff and call it what you want it to be, and then make your changes in there so that it doesn't affect the main one. So you always have those as a fallback. So we're going to go right into the material. I just did this because I know where it's at. So we're going to turn on under folding the enable ocean foam, and then we're going to click this, and we do have a bunch of parameters here where we can change as well. Almost all of this is also available in the parameters here, so we don't really need that in there. I just wanted to turn it off, and I thought there was a check mark or a tick for it, but unfortunately there wasn't. I'm going to close all these up because I know where each one of these is, so I can just quickly go to the ones we need. I know there's a faster way to do this, but this will work for now. So the last thing that we're going to take care of before knocking out these RVTs is we're going to go up and just situate this a little bit. Because right now we have a bunch of landscape brushify brushes, which you can see here. And they're kind of in the way. And if we push G, they go away. But sometimes I don't want those to remove everything. So I want to see my boxes, but I don't want to see the brushes. And right now we can select them all and just hit the eyedropper. Let me go back to G. Hit the eyedropper and it'll go away. But we can also just move these to their own folder, and we'll just call them brushify brushes. I forget you have to actually select it and push F2 to change the name. We'll go to Brushify brushes, just like that. So now we have all these contained in a folder, and we can actually hide them like that so that they're not all taking up the outliner. And we can just click this one eyedropper to get rid of them when we don't want to see them anymore. But you can see we still have our boxes available. And when you're doing RVTs, we're going to be messing with lots of boxes. So that just really helps. Another one that I want to do is I am going to take the landscape. I'm going to create a new folder for that one. I'm going to call that one landscape. And the reason that I'm doing, that's not right. The reason that I'm doing that is I actually like to add a lot of the landscape items that we're going to be adding into the landscape folder just by adding new folders. So if I click on landscape and I add a new folder, which I can't because I have to have a item to add in there. Let's just do these two right here. We'll go to move to, we're going to create a new folder. These are going to be the data layers. Oh, I keep forgetting to push the F2 on that one. These are going to be the data layers. And then we can just drag that right into the landscape folder. And then you'll see we have two folders. And we have everything nice and contained just for the landscape. Perfect. So we will mess around with the other ones a little bit later because we do have one. We're going to put this in an ocean. And then, well, the landmass brush manager, we're actually going to put in the Brushify. And this one will go in its own ocean folder. And this one will go in its own lighting folder. So all of the lighting will go into, let's actually just go ahead and do that one real quick. Create folder. Rename this one to lighting. Whoops. Just like that. And then we have one more here. We'll go ahead and move this one into the ocean folder. Push F2 on this one and call this ocean. And the ocean, the lighting will go into the environment folder later, just so you have all your environmental stuff, because I like to split my environment stuff to one, and then all of my POIs or points of interest will be split into its own folder so that I can quickly go to each one of those just to make it easier to find and locate those items. So for right now, we're going to actually get rid of the water because we don't really want to see it while we're working on the RVTs, just so we can see what our RVT volumes are doing. So we're going to go up and we're going to select here. For the quick add a project, we're going to go to volumes, and it will be right here on the bottom. We have the runtime virtual texture volume, and we're going to need two of these. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click on it. We're going to move it to a new folder, and we're going to call this folder RVTs. RVTs. Oops. T's like so. And this first one is going to be called RVT underscore. This one will be the height underscore HT for our height. Now we're going to get this one set up first, and then we'll copy it for our other one. So you need two in order to make this work. So if we click on it right now, we can find where our box is right here. We're going to go ahead and just zero that out. And the first thing we're going to do is go into our virtual texture here, and we're going to add our height. So it's going to bring up your properties here for each one. So the one we're going to use is the VT height example here. So if you read it, it says game Brushify materials. And the reason we're going to use this one is because we're going to use a whole bunch of Brushify materials, and it's much easier to set the Oceanology to use the Brushify RVT than to try and set all the materials that you have in Brushify to something else. You can do that, definitely, but this is just faster. So we're going to go ahead and click on that one. That's going to give us our RVT height there. We can set our bounds to our landscape, which we will select here. Set bounds to landscape, and let's see if it's going to work for us. And it's going to bug that way. Yeah, we don't need to build that. That's right. This is the part that works sometimes, doesn't work sometimes, can be a pain. Let's go ahead and get back to our RVT height. And we're going to set our bounds to... this one's being a pain in the butt. So what I do sometimes is go ahead and just select this one here. And we're going to select that one. Believe this is proxy 000. Yes, it is. So we're going to select in the RVT this proxy 000. And we're going to set our bounds, which is going to give us our 0 location. So we're going to collect the 0. For right now, we're going to collect all of these. So if you shift and then right click, you're going to copy. And if you shift and left click, you can paste. So we're going to shift left click to copy it. We're going to set this one back to the landscape. We're going to set our bounds, and then that finally works. I don't know why it does that sometimes. Get our bounds back off like that. And sometimes it takes a few attempts. So the problem that we're having right now is you can actually see that it's kind of a little bit elongated here, where it's a little too far out. So the issue with RVTs is that they have to match the bounds exactly of the map that you're building, or you're going to have pop-in issues, a lot of pop-in issues, where you can very noticeably see that the RVTs are popping in and out. So right now I'm going to reset everything, get it back. So we're back to our correct location here. And then we're going to select our landscape. We're going to set our bounds, snap to. And this one was, so I had these set earlier, and I think they were 20,003. I think they were 500.2. Nope. It might have been 3, since it was 2033. Oops, and this should be 0 too. Oh, there we go. All right, let's zoom way in and make sure that we are right on there. So I don't know why this happens. So sometimes the snapping to bounds works perfectly, and sometimes it doesn't. I haven't really figured out why it's doing that. So yeah, let's just leave it the way it was there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to actually copy this one. We have this already set, and we're going to add our Z in. We're going to add, say, 36,000 on the Z. So we have to be over the height of the mountains. So you can actually go in your perspective and go to left or right. It doesn't really matter. Zoom out a bit and you can see the height that you have here. But you can also notice that we have a little bit below, and that's why I went 36,000, is because it's just a little bit higher, and we can actually grab it and just bring it down below that, and we're over everything. So everything is set there. And then we can go back into our perspective, grab our RVT height. We'll Control D that to duplicate it. And we're going to call this one landscape. That's just what I like to call it. You can call it whatever you want on your project. And on this one, we're going to do our virtual texture, and we're going to use the landscape example here. And that should set up the RVTs for that. All right, perfect. So now it actually looks like it's slightly out. It's just because perspective view kind of forces a strange look. If we look down from the top, you can see that it matches. Whoops, we do have a little bit off there. Oh, that's because I did not copy this one. So we got to Control C this one, copy it there, and we'll do the same thing on the RVT height. Control C, whoops. Control C this one, copy it there. And now we should see that it matches perfectly to the size. And we can further zoom in to verify, which it does. So it's perfectly aligned on the grid. Perfect. All right, that'll get us set up. There's actually a formula where if you're doing landscapes that are elongated or something of that nature, if you have an issue setting the bounds, because sometimes this does work, sometimes it doesn't, there's actually a formula that you can find online. I can't remember exactly where it is, that gives you the ratio to be able to find your exact size and get the proper scale numbers for it. So let's go back to perspective here. So this is set up. Now the important one. So if we go into our landscape and we go into the landscape instance, this is the texture instance or the material. We can go down to the runtime virtual texture here and turn it on like so. And we'll turn on the displace and the emit power, or the distance emit power, and move this over a little bit. You're going to see the whole world turn black. And the reason this is turning black is because we have RVTs in the level, but we don't have the landscape saying which RVTs it should be using. So on your landscape layer here, your main one, not any of the proxies, we're going to go down to where it says RVT or virtual texture, and you're going to have your draw in virtual textures, and we're going to add 2. And our first one is going to be our RVT height. And our second one is going to be our RVT landscape example, like so. And then you'll see them pop back in like that. And that part is pretty much done for the RVT for the landscape. And we can also go in and, so the pop in that you're going to see, and this takes some stuff to get rid of. We're not going to deal with this a lot right now because it's really not that important. But if you're in, say, where you're going to see it as your character and you rotate quickly from one side to another, you will see the RVT popping in. I don't know if you see that right there and right there. If you look in the mountains in the background, you'll see the RVTs pop in. Like that. So the reason, one of the reasons for that is there are some setups that you want to do in the actual core of the RVTs. Some of it will be in your preference, your project settings. So if you go into your projects and you go into your rendering, you can go down to your virtual textures here, and you can change some of your tile sizes, border sizes, stuff like that. We do have some hard code that's going in from Oceanology that's going to change some of that as well. That's going to hard code it in the INI file. But another big one is just because the way that Unreal is set up, they give you a very small RVT page pool. So it's like the old message that you used to get all the time whenever you had a lot of textures in the screen, and then it would say that your streaming texture pool is over 2,000 megabytes or something, and then you would see some of your textures going a little bit. You can actually get rid of that. See, I'm not going to get that in mine because I have it disabled in the INI file. But there is also a page pool specifically for the RVTs, and they only allot you 64 megabytes. So you can increase that, but there are some tools that you can use built in where you can actually see how much streaming in and streaming out you have of your RVTs to get a precise amount of pool that you need, because you don't really want to go over too much, because the whole point of this is to try and keep the, keep it simple and get the performance up. And when I say the performance, I think we can actually pull it and just see what our optimization is on the shader complexity on this one. Let's see. Yeah, in the shader complexity here. Wow, I haven't done this in a while. So I'm not currently running Nanite on the landscape yet. We'll get into all that later. So you do have, for the people who've just started doing all this stuff, so you do have a lot of information here that you can go through for setting different view modes to see what your terrain or what your landscape is doing. And you can get some very valuable information on how the lighting works, how everything is working. So right now we're all on, this is the actual shadowing coming in. And we also have some optimization view levels, which will show your light complexity. And you can show all kinds of fun stuff like that to get an idea of what your map's running at, what's taking up the most resources from your GPU and your CPU. Like so. And we have a very flat shader complexity here. So if I were to go back into the landscape, we should see a difference in the complexity that we get if we turn off our RVTs. You can see how red it is there. So it's a very complex texture because there's a lot of things going on, and this texture has macro texturing in it, so the closer you get to it, the more smooth it gets and the more high definition it gets. But without the RVTs, you can see that we're running, I mean, it's not horrible, but once you get a whole bunch of stuff in here, you'll see that fall down a little bit more. And when I say a bunch of stuff, like if you're painting in, because we haven't put in any sand, we haven't put in anything pretty much. So it's just the main single auto material at the beginning. So the more auto materials or the more materials you add onto this for breaking it up like forest and all that, you're going to see this dwindle. But with the RVTs, we're getting a much, much better overall performance. So let's go ahead and drop back out of that. That's just a quick view on that one. All right, so now we have the RVT set up completely for the landscape, but if we drop in the ocean, it's still not working because the ocean has its own RVT setup. And we're going to have to actually go in. We'll just go directly here. We'll go to all. We could do it also on the volumes. It's in the volumes, but to find where they're all at, you can go to all classes and then just type in Oceanology or just ocean. And you're going to see the Oceanology RVT. Where is it? Oceanology. Oh, they changed it on me. Put an RVT. There we go. Oceanology RVT Heightmap right here. So this particular Heightmap is going to have to match the other Heightmaps that we have, or the RVTs that we have here. So we're going to grab this and we're going to drag it into the folder there, and we can just copy and paste the location data for each one of these. So you'll see right now we have this one all out in its own area. So now I just re-zeroed it. We can go back into the height and we'll just right click on this one, go to this one and left click. And we'll do the same thing for this and this one. And then you shall see we will have three right here that are identical. So they're all right on top of each other. So if we remove them, why are they not showing up? Well, we can do it that way. So any of them that we get on, you can see that they're right dead on top of each other in the same spot. So that's all in well. And here we also have our RVT Heightmap. So we're going to have to change this one. So we have the virtual texture is RVT Heightmap. This is the one that's used in Oceanology, and we're not going to use that. We're actually going to use our VT height example, which is the one that we got from Brushify. So you can see here, Brushify Materials, Landscape Functions, RVT. And we're going to drop that one in. We're going to build it and copy the height map to the renderer. Like so. And let's go ahead and save. And let's verify that we have that working. So this one did take me a minute last time to get that working perfectly. All right, let's go back. It actually looks like I missed a simple step. So if we go back into our BP Infinite Ocean, I still have the RVT height map from Oceanology here, and we actually want to change that to the RVT height map that we are using. Simple little thing to change there. And I do want to check the Ocean RVT height map one more time to make sure that I didn't change any of these parameters. So we're going to go back to just a standard, copy it to height map. Always do the build, copy, just in case. Sometimes you'll get seams if you don't build it, and then copy it to the render target, because the Oceanology Infinite Ocean is actually using a render target of that from the top, I believe, to get the location where it's actually touching the water. So if you go under the mountain, you can see that it's all foam. And this is the mask itself. So you can see where that mask is. and then it just lets a little bit out past that mask. And that's where our mask shoreline will take effect to get as much or as little shore foam as we want. So for me, I generally go about 800 on the shore foam. It really depends on the map and what I'm setting up. And the Terrain Z, these really don't matter for what we're doing, since there's not a lot to deal with there. We do have the RVT coastline. You can actually control the waves a little bit to a point on how they function closer to land. We'll set up some more of that a little bit later. Right now, that's not really that big of a deal. So that will get all of the RVTs set up that we have, and that'll get us a little bit better situation there. One thing I do like to do, I'm going to go ahead and check the RVTs really quick on the landscape itself and verify that I have the settings that I want in the RVTs to try and mitigate some of that pop-in. So I generally would do this around 42, and I think I would do a 4. I think it's 442 for me. Let me see. That was not it. It's a little big. It was it 2? All right, so that is, okay, there we go. So that will mitigate just a little bit of the pop-in. The size variants for these are dependent on your texture size that you have. So if you highlight it, you can actually see. So 2041 by 2041 is generally 24. But I find that makes the larger stretch tiles. So the way Brushify works, it has a whole bunch of macro tiles, and then it has a large texture on top for the far distances. And it kind of shrinks those down a bit and makes them look repetitive. So I put it a little bit higher to kind of get those back up to the size that they originally were, to kind of match what it originally had, so that whenever you see it from a distance, you get a nice large texture. And then whenever you slowly zoom in, actually we'll do it on the rocks so it makes it a little bit better. So the further in that you go, the more you're going to see that change into the other texture. And right there, it'll start blending into the actual texture you're going to see when you're up close. And we can change all that too in the Brushify as well, how it works, what it looks like, everything. So that gets us all set up with the RVTs. Right now, we're actually going to just go ahead and, and what I was telling you with these brushes, sometimes I don't want them in the way, but I don't want to get rid of my boxes. That's why I put them in the brush here. You can just close it down. Yeah, let's go ahead and pull everything. For this particular instance, I want to get rid of everything, so we're going to drop everything. And what we're going to do right now is I'm actually going to pull out the old Wacom tablet. I had to find my pen there for a minute. That always goes missing. Perfect. So we got the Wacom tablet set up, and we're going to go ahead and just start dropping in a little bit of texturing for the beach area so that we can see what we have here. So the first thing I like to do, go ahead into landscape. We'll go right into our painting, and we have a fairly decent sized brush there. That'll work perfectly. So right now these are all bugged. Just happens. You kind of get used to it after a while. And it doesn't really matter which brush layer we're on. This main one is perfectly fine. That's the one that we have the original grass on anyway, so that's the one we'll use. And we're going to go to the beach. Make sure it's highlighted. And if you paint it in, you're going to get sand. And we can zoom into that and see exactly what that looks like. And you can see that it is its own auto material that has its own height fall off with its own type of rocks. So that's one of the things that, like on a lot of these auto materials, a lot of these are just meshes or textures that you can paint in, but they don't have their own height sets. Each one of these is a function that has its own height set, so you're going to get the functionality for the rocks and everything. So for right now, what we're going to do is we're going to just go all the way around our landscape here. We're going to actually build this up a little bit because this is going to be our beachy areas. This is just to get a base and also to get the line where we're going to have the dirt. We can actually do it all the way across the rocks. So right now it actually looks like dirt, sand, but if you go into it, you're going to see that it's actually rock, not sand. And we're going to build all around. So this is just so we can get our water line. And once we have our water line, we can build everything else out from there. Because we're going to hide the ocean instance here in a minute so we can see the rest of our landscape. And we'll just do this really high. We'll just take care of that in a little bit anyway in another way. This is a fairly good sized brush. We have a way we're going to blend these together using some alpha brushes. So that they match up a little better. But right now I'm just trying to get the perimeter, and I'll show you why here in a little bit so we can see where we're going to add all this sand to. And these don't really matter because we can just add the grass back in. Like so. So now we have the whole thing kind of covered up. We'll go ahead and just do these as well. And we're definitely going to play around with that island a little bit and get it a little bit more fleshed out. This is just the base to have the island there. So right now we can go to the infinite ocean, just hide it. So now we have our whole island mapped out so we know where everything is. We can just go in. Let's go with a strength. Put our strength all the way to 100%. And we're just going to paint in all of this area. Because we can add later with some alpha brushes, really nice fall offs and stuff for all of this sand. But for right now, we just want to differentiate what is ocean floor, what is the island. And I guess this video will go a little bit longer than I planned. I wasn't planning on doing this. I was only planning on doing the RVTs. So I get really lost doing this. So let's get all of this set up. We'll actually just go ahead and increase that brush size quite a bit. And let's get the hardness a little. Whoops, that's the wrong way. Let's go a little heavier. And we can just get a little bit more done at one time. Follow right around there. Like so. And it doesn't really matter if we ride up a little bit on these mountains and everything. We are going to use some techniques to kind of fade that in and give it some really cool look. But like I said, for right now, we're just trying to differentiate what's what. And we can go in here like this. We'll just go ahead and color all that. Okay, so this is all underwater ocean. Perfect. This works well. Now we can go ahead and bring back our water. And you'll see that you can actually see some of the sand and stuff in there. We're gonna take care of some of that too, because the beaches need to be a little more faded out, a little more, right now it just goes to very deep. And we do want to take care of that in some places, but that's a little later. We're not going to worry about that too much. We're going to put a POI somewhere in the middle of the island here, so you can see how that's done custom. And we'll probably actually jump into Riverology also and add in a river, because our POI will most likely be a waterfall or something like that. So I can show you how that works as well, and we can have the river come down into the ocean itself. So the last thing that I'm going to do for today, since we have all this in there, and we can also take a look at the ocean, so I can get rid of my tablet here because we're not painting anymore for right now. So I got the old mouse. So right now, let's just go ahead and take a look at this sand texture. So at the distance, you can see what it is. So this sand texture is not ideal to me. We are going to change this out a little bit later. For right now, we're going to use it since it's there. For me, it's a bit flat. I like something a little more dynamic or a little bit more bumps and valleys and stuff. So we'll probably paint in 2 of them, and we'll mix them together to make it look a little bit better. Because like you can see right now, this is very flat. It doesn't have too much to it. But for our purposes right now, it works just fine. So the big one right now, let's go ahead and play around with the ocean just a little bit and see if we can get a little bit better coloring on the ocean for this style of, say, this is a tropical, say this is somewhere in Hawaii. And we want a really nice, pretty, clear-ish ocean. All right. So one thing they did add in Oceanology 5.1.8, which was very interesting, is you have this coastal surface dispersion right here. And if you bring that up, you can see we can actually get two independent colors for how deep the water is. So the deeper water will have its, its regular bluer color, and then the shallower water will have its own lighter, or you can make it whatever you want. In an alien world, it can be just crazy. We're not going to mess with that quite yet. I just want to let you know that it does do that. So we're actually going to go into the, we're going to do the, where was that? Shoreline wetness. Oh, we can control and enable the shoreline wetness as well. So the way the wetness works, you have plenty of parameters here also where you can change the size of the shoreline wetness, how much fall off it has, also how much fall off is in the water. So if you go into the water, you can see there's some there as well. And if you're doing a lot of swimming stuff, you want to bring that a little bit closer up here, because it does look a little weird whenever you have a little bit of a roughness here that kind of makes it sparkly where you can see underwater. So you definitely can do that in all these settings. You can also go into the material itself and change some more parameters there if you needed to. We have our ocean time again. That's for setting up for replication. I'm going to put it on local time because I'm not planning on doing any replication for anything. Right now, I'm just... Oh, surface. That's the one. Yeah, they changed a little bit from the older one as to what it's called. So we have our surface scattering. We have our caustics. And our refraction and our normal calculation. I don't mess with the normal calculation very much, but you could actually completely change the waves depending on what normals you're using and the parameters that you have set up. You can change the normals out here as well. And your refraction for the index of refraction for how it bends the light when it goes underwater. I don't really mess with that too much because that's kind of a set thing unless you're doing something very stylized or something like in space and this isn't water, this is say, mercury or something like that. So for right now, the only thing we're going to really want to mess with is just, let's get some colors in there and the way that I like to do with them. So you have a lot of parameters here that you can use to change the way things look, the fade length for your coloring and everything. I don't really use pretty much any of this. The only things I normally use is the absorption. This is the absorption close, and the scattering, this is the scattering close. I don't use the far because the far doesn't matter too much unless you're flying and you can see it from a distance. But for me, usually this is the highest you're going to go on one of the ships and you won't tell any difference. So your absorption, your scattering is going to be, if we bring up the scattering, you can see that this is kind of like the subcolor underneath the waves and how it affects the light that's being reflected through the waves. And then your absorption is going to be the actual coloring that you're going to get. How clear is it and how muddy is the water. So these are the two we're going to mess with the most. To get the watercolors that I like, I actually like to bring the absorption down farther. Yes, bring the absorption down farther, and I usually bring up the absorption values here to different. So if I want a really blue I'll bring this up to like say a 200. And the green will will kind of give it more that tropical vibe again. So you can go extremely blue like this. But if you bring this one up, you'll start seeing it get back into the tropical colors. Like that. And then your red is going to kind of cancel them out more, which is going to give you your clarity back in. So if you bring your red up, you're going to see your clarity come off from the beach. Now you can go too high on your red and you'll start getting a very warm water. So we want to try and keep, so this should be about 75% of this, and this one right here should be about 50% of this in order to get a decent water color. And this is just rule of thumb. So there's many variables depending on what you want to build, but for going for the water system I'm going more for a tropical. So I kind of actually want to go a little bit more into the green than into the blue. So if I've lived quite a bit of time in the Bahamas, and you get this beautiful blue ocean, but when you get closer to shore where you can see the sand, it actually turns a greenish color. It's like a greenish blue instead of a blue. And that's just kind of the vibe that I like to go for. And we can always, of course, bring in our red a little bit if we need to make that water clearer in that area. And then we have our scattering. Our scattering will still make the whole of the water clearer, which I'm not really going to mess with that too much. I don't mind the scattering. I do like to change the scattering down a little bit darker though. And I may bring it a little bit more onto the green side on the scattering and bring it up just a little bit. Just get a little bit more to that tropical vibe. So once we get the actual beach out here where it's a little bit longer out, because right now it's a very short beach area. Although if you were to play it, which I did set up the character a bit so you can walk around, you can see that it's actually a pretty good size. When you go underwater, you can see. So we got plenty here to mess with. And this is going to be the next thing we're going to take care of really quickly, is we're going to just beef up the water a little tiny bit. We're actually going to need, let me see if I can find a model that we can throw in here. Let me go back to Oceanology. Right here, and we'll go to design, ocean, blueprints, prefabs. Let's do the fishing boat prefabs, and it doesn't really matter which one we get because we just want to see how the water is affecting how it's warbling around. Let's go ahead and exit that one out. And what we have here, whoops, had my camera a little high, and we'll go this way so we can see how deep it is out here where it gets really dark. So now we can go ahead and click back on this one, and we can go back to, let's go ahead and close all of our surface stuff, close our RVT stuff. We're done playing with that for right this minute. And then we have the underwater, which is right up here. And my favorite thing to take care of right away is the bubbles. So we have the bubble count at 1,000. That's just a little bit too much for me. I put it down to 90, 100, or 60. Just makes it look a little more. I like it to be, like I said, a little bit more of an ambient thing. I like them there, but I don't want them to overrun the whole thing. So this looks perfect to me. And we can also, I believe it is here in the underwater, we can change the vignette setup as well. So we do have a little bit of a vignette along the edge, and you can increase, decrease your vignette to take away some of that darkness or bring it back even more. We're going to keep it where it is because I think it does look really nice. Your sun power, we can change how much the sun is affecting, but you will see that if you get into certain territories, you'll start getting errors. So there is a finite amount of adjustment you have there. And the deep color distance, these I'm still working on a little bit right now. I believe this is for when you go deeper in the water and it gets darker. This could also just be the distance there. So I don't remember exactly each. I've played with all of them, but by name, I can't remember exactly which one. So one of the things I like to take care of right away is the fog distance. Or the fog density. I don't generally do this much because I want to be able to see more things, especially whenever you go down in like a very large reef and stuff. Here you can only see so far. I generally set my fog distance to so that you can only see about 3,500 to 4,000 centimeters, because that's usually where I'm cutting off my culling distance for anything that I have that's showing in the ocean, because my ocean's fairly dense on my game, so I have lots of reefs and stuff. And right at that distance is where I cut it off, so you're not loading in too much stuff all at one time. And that's generally around 0.4 or 0.35-ish to give it a little bit more. So you can just see those, and just beyond there, so you would load in all this and be able to see all the coral, and just past that is where it's actually culling out, so you don't have an absurd amount of coral everywhere. And once again, you can actually change all of your colors underwater. I kind of do keep this one the way that it is, because it does have that greenish hue that actually looks realistic. If you've been into the Bahamas or any tropical location like that, you go into Hawaii, stuff like that, that's kind of thing that you see a lot, is this greenish blue look. Band offset and band opacity is for the banding. Whenever you look into the sun and everything like that, you can see the bands where they change from one color stepping to another. You do have to be careful with that one, because you can get some artifacts if you go very high or too low. And for right now, I think that we're actually going to call it here for right this minute, because this does actually get us quite a few things done. Let's go ahead and delete that. Let's jump out real quick and see what we have done. So the next time we jump in, we're going to actually go through and take care of the beaches completely. We're going to change out one of these materials to another material so we can layer those two together to get a much nicer beach with a lot more variance. We'll start building one of the POIs. I think we're just going to do one large POI that goes across the entirety of the map. And then we'll start getting our foliage and everything put in. I don't know if that will be on the next video, but we might start. And then we'll play around with getting these beaches set up, and we will be editing and changing the ocean quite a bit as we do it to fit the style. Because right now we don't really have a style, we just have a landscape with nothing. Once we get our style in, then we'll be able to look at the water and say, hey, you know what, I kind of want it to look like this, let's do that. Oh, this is how deep it is, we want to see more of the ocean bottom, let's do that. So for right now, this is just for our base. And we do have all the RVTs set in, and they are functioning properly. Next time we'll probably do a little bit of adjustment just to get them to pop in and pop out a little bit better. But that is going to take a minute, so we'll definitely do that in the next one. So as I said at the beginning of the video, I do indeed have 2 keys that the developer was gracious enough to give me, and we will have some rules coming out probably Wednesday to Friday of this week. Just a couple little steps that you'll have to take to be able to get those, so we know who everyone is and who is going to be able to get it once we do the raffle. Or we're going to do a random system, so it'll randomly choose who's going to win those 2 keys. And I think that the sign up will probably run 2 to 3 weeks. So you have 2 to 3 weeks to be able to get on the video, put in the information that's needed. It's not a lot. And then 3 weeks after that, we'll go ahead and actually do a video where we're doing the randomization of the names, and then those 2 lucky people will win 2 copies of Oceanology, which is amazing. Thank you, Debs, for that. Also, you can check out their channels as well, and I have a new link that'll go in the bottom if you want to go on the Discord for Oceanology and ask any questions. So they have a general question and a pre-buy area, so if you want to ask any questions before you buy, or just need to know something or how some functionality will work in your game idea, you can go ahead and drop it there, and then somebody will get back to you and let you know. And hopefully everything works out and you do end up playing around with this amazing system, because it's a lot of fun. All right, so on that note, I'm going to leave you guys for this one, and I'll see you on the next one.